One of college football's top defensive players has entered his name into the transfer portal.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal news. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. And today, the beginning of each day for now until I don't even know when, with the portal getting back open, we've got some pretty important news here. Mikai Gbayor, linebacker that played the last 4 seasons at Nebraska, but transferred in December to Missouri, has re-entered the portal. So he still has 1 year of eligibility left, and this is a big-time player. He's going to be the profile for today that we go the most into. But there are other players to talk about as well. A big-time corner, a pass rusher with elite traits based on his bloodlines, and he's got some production as well. We've got a player that was a highly rated recruit who redshirted, hasn't played yet. How does that factor into the portal process? And then got a guy that's got all kinds of skills, but he's transferred multiple times. How does that work for programs? How will they attack going after him? So let's start off with Gbayor. Again, he played at Nebraska for the last 4 years. He's a linebacker, but I'm not going to say inside or outside because he has started at multiple spots just in the last year. He's 230 pounds. He's a guy that can really run. His production is through the roof. And as I like to say, especially every time I do a podcast featuring portal players, your best ability is your availability. Gbayor played 375 snaps last year for the Cornhuskers and played in all 12 games. That is the definition of being consistent. If you're going to go into the portal, that's one of the very first things that college coaches are going to look at. So let's break down his game and why he's a player that not only should be looked at as a good linebacker, or a pass rusher, or a guy that can play in nickel, etc. I rank him as one of the best players in the portal regardless because he's just a really good defensive player overall. You could utilize him on 3rd and 8 and get after the quarterback, whether it's from inside linebacker or outside linebacker. You can use him in coverage the whole 9 yards. And to back that up, here are his grades from Pro Football Focus. Overall, 72.1 for defense. Run defense, as you would expect with a linebacker, is really good, 78.3. Tackling, 70.8. Pass rush, 63.1. And coverage, 64.7. It is unique to find bigger linebackers. And again, he's 230 pounds. Gbayor's not a guy that is going to be fleet of foot against necessarily a slot, but that's pretty good coverage grade for a guy that is traditionally going to play in the box and bang with offensive linemen. Further, he's a guy that had some pretty good stats overall in terms of the last couple seasons and what he's been able to do. So here's just one example. 73 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 3 passes defended, 1.5 sacks. This is not a guy that I would be surprised if he had 15, 20 schools that he really had to narrow down quick because, again, the production's there, the natural size, he's durable, he's a versatile player. He's played linebacker at outside on and back to inside, back and forth. When I look up his Pro Football Focus, this is very unusual to see this, but just from the class or the 2023 season, middle linebacker, weak side linebacker, right outside, weak side, middle, weak side, middle, weak side, right outside, left outside, right outside, weak side. Every week it was something different, and that means that he can shift to basically any scheme that's in front of him. Team comes out in 4 wide, he can play over the slot. If it's a power formation, they'll happily put him in the middle. He understands scheme. When you find guys like that, it's going to increase their value because you know that I can slide him here or there if I have an injury, if I have a player that's struggling and I need to change my lineup. It's unfortunate, but sometimes that's got to happen. This is a guy that can do it. Mikai Gbayor is not going to just be pigeonholed into being a traditional middle linebacker, this 6'2", 230 pounder in the middle, when that's important, but he can play multiple roles for your defense. So let's talk about the opportunities for him this next season. I think it's a really unique scenario because, I mean, he could go back to Nebraska, I suppose, but here's the unique part of it. Tony White, the DC at Nebraska last year, has left. So is Evan Cooper, the safeties coach. So has their defensive line coach. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with the linebacker coach, and I don't know what's going on with Nebraska staff, but all those guys went to Florida State. And I'm sure Florida State was involved in some capacity to begin with. I don't know what his price tag is, but the spring window doesn't have as many players. And maybe there's just something he didn't like about Missouri. I have no idea before anybody asks. No clue why he's back in the portal. But if he is, you'd have to think Florida State's at least the front runner, because the old coaching staff for him, 3 of those guys are now in Tallahassee, including, again, the most important piece is your defensive coordinator. Mikai is a guy that's probably going to be the play caller at a lot of places. Maybe Florida State doesn't want to spend the money. Maybe Florida State is good with what they have at linebacker, but hint, they are not deep at that spot. They've got a lot of bodies, but not a lot of proven production. We'll see. Ironically, Stephon Thompson, a guy from Nebraska, transferred to Florida State already at linebacker. So maybe they're not going to go after him. But I guarantee you, everybody that has some money to spend this spring will at least make a phone call. So again, Mikai Gbayor, that's about as good a defensive player as you're going to find in the portal this spring. I will be really curious to see where he ends up, because his opportunities will be vast. Next, this is an unfortunate situation. I don't blame the young man. Julian Neal played at Fresno State. He transferred to Stanford. But then the whole Troy Taylor situation happened. It's ugly at Stanford. He has re-entered the portal. 6'2", 200-pound corners don't grow on trees, especially ones with productivity. This is just for last year. Again, your best ability is your availability. 548 snaps for Julian Neal this past season. And again, also 6'2", 200. So he's a good-sized player. He had 4 starts, 548 snaps, and his defensive grade was 70.3. His run defense was 78. That's extremely high for a corner. That means he's a physical player. That certainly is a good trait. Tackling 63.8, coverage 67.1. Out of the 50 targets that Pro Football Focus had for him, only 24 were receptions, and he gave up just over like 11 yards per catch. He's a pretty good player. He played at the non-P4 level, but he has size, and this is something that personal preference for me. When corners can play the run or the screen game, they make a lot of plays near the line of scrimmage. That is something you have to do, because quarterbacks run more often now, running backs outside zone and screens, and then those pesky wide receiver screens. If you're not an aggressive player, able to take on a tight end or O-lineman, even if you're just avoiding them to get to the screen play and make it go boom and just blow it up, then you're probably not going to be very good, because everybody is trying to screen these defenses to death, especially younger teams at the quarterback position. They don't want them to try to make post-snap reads that much. They may not tell them that, but with all these different teams running cover 3 match and different kinds of like zone defense one play, show it the next, but then jump into man, do different things on one half the field to the other, whatever it may be. You know, they roll coverages so much, the quarterbacks throw a lot of picks, and it's the only way to really slow these teams down. They try to get more complex. So you're seeing more and more screens every year. You have to have corners that will come up and tag somebody in the run game and the screen game, because you're going to get beat sometimes. Everybody has receivers that can run. Everybody has receivers that can beat you down the field. So I'm curious about Julian Neal. He's going to be a grad student. It's only going to be a one-hit wonder, but maybe somebody like SC, maybe somebody like Oregon. I wouldn't be surprised at anybody that would look at him. 6'2", 200. Is he going to be your dominant player? Not necessarily, but he's going to help you. And again, with that experience and size, probably a guy that can be used in many different ways. Maybe your nickel, maybe your strong safety. Depends on what you want. He's 200 pounds. There's a lot of different capabilities. And don't forget special teams. That's important as well. When we come back, we're going to talk about a guy that's got insane bloodlines. Ridiculous. But this player is also somebody that's been at multiple schools. And then we're going to talk about a redshirt freshman that was one of the top recruits in the country. That is next here on the Portal Podcast. This message is from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now taxes, it's about matching with TurboTax expert who can do your taxes in as soon as today. An expert gives your taxes the undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find every deduction possible, file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed, no waiting, wandering, or worries. Now, this is taxes. Get an expert now with TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Bloodlines matter. There are certain families that you think of with the NFL, with being a position, whatever it may be. When you hear the name Clowney, you probably think defensive line, and you should. Obviously, Jadeveon Clowney was an elite player, and he went first in the draft. Well, Devon Clowney is a player that is also a very talented player, but he's been at multiple schools. He's not as big as Jadeveon, but he's 255 pounds. He had 69 tackles so far in his career, 6.5 sacks. But he's played at Louisville, Charlotte, and Ole Miss. How does that work out? Does that go against a player? This is where the subjectivity not just comes into play, but it's like as broad as it gets. I guarantee you certain coaches will be like, no. If you've been to 3 schools, I'm gonna pause. But then there are going to be other schools, especially if it's a premium position, and he is because he's a defensive end. Clowney may get a look just based on that. He's got some productivity. This past season, he played 214 snaps. His defensive grade was 71.5. His run defense, 72.5. Tackling, 80.8. That's actually pretty darn good, especially for a guy that can play edge/outside linebacker. He played some outside linebacker at Charlotte. 64.8 for coverage, and then 72. That's not too bad either. Tackling 64.8 and 72 for coverage. I don't think that he's a huge risk physically. It's just you got to find the fit for him. If you've been to 3 schools, some of that's probably on you. I know nobody likes to hear that, but I'm not here to give any negativity on purpose, but 3 schools is a lot. Does Clowney have a fit somewhere? Absolutely. Where is it and why? This is why I personally find the transfer portal so intriguing. There aren't that many guys that have his physical traits, but he's been in 3 schools. What is the magic elixir to get Devon Clowney over the top? I don't know. Somebody needs to figure it out, though. Obviously, again, you're related to Jadeveon Clowney. You're in that family tree. Has got a lot of talent. He's from the Rock Hill area in South Carolina. Per capita, that's about as good as it gets for sending kids to play college football. Just over the line from Charlotte. That's big-time talent there. So he's known what it looks like since he was in high school, and he's been at different programs. Let's see what he does. I'm curious about that. But I also think it's going to be fun if he goes somewhere and blows up. It's kind of cool to see a guy resurrect his career, and I'm rooting for him. Finally, Devon Mitchell. Now, I'm not going to give you any PFF grades or even any stats. He redshirted, but he was an elite recruit after reclassifying. He should have been a guy that's getting ready to enroll right now or just enroll for spring. But he's from the state of California, goes to Oklahoma. For whatever reason, Devon Mitchell has decided to depart from the program. But he's 6'3", 250. This is a kid that I've seen play. Very athletic. He has the physical tools you're looking at to be either an inline blocker, an H-back. He could be a guy split out. He's a natural receiver, even though, again, he's 250. I don't know where he'll go. I don't know what his background is in terms of like what he's looking for in a program. He could have went to a ton of different schools out of high school. He had a bunch of offers. But, again, it didn't work out at Oklahoma in 1 year. We'll see if that kind of changes the perception because he didn't play any redshirted, but I don't think it should. The only thing you got to look at is, okay, did he get in any trouble or anything like that? If he's capable in terms of like if his health is good, I think that Mitchell will have about as many, if not more, looks as a tight end than anybody else. He's got 4 years of eligibility. 4. And this is a very nimble, big-bodied kid. Like, not that he wants to, but just athletically, he's a guy that you could put at edge and be a pass rusher. Very, very skilled young man. So we'll see. Finally, and this is one that I'm not even going to throw out stats and all that, his college career has been wild. Big-time recruit out of high school from the state of Louisiana, committed to Notre Dame, flipped late to Michigan. Transfers to Ole Miss, transfers back to Michigan, and now he's back in the portal again. Marion Walker, corner or receiver. He's 6'2", 6'3", really long, but something's just off there if you've transferred that many times. Kind of like Clowney, you got to figure out what the deal is. Why has it not worked out? The length, the athleticism, 100% it's there. Where is home for Marion Walker? I hate to see a talented kid like this not find that spot, but if he doesn't soon, it's going to be over with. This is probably his last stop. Maybe he ends up at one of the schools in Louisiana. Maybe he ends up at Southern Miss. I have no idea, but Marion Walker is really talented. I would love to see him, just like Clowney or anybody else that's been in multiple schools, find that niche because I want to see good football. Hopefully he finds it, and he finds it soon, but he's just been all over the place and hasn't played a ton. I'm not sure what it is, but I think Marion Walker just has to find the right place for him. Whatever spot that is, I hope it's this next one because this may be his last chance. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. We're going to be doing these profiles every single day. And as we get closer next week, there might be a few days that I do multiple podcasts just on the portal stuff. There are some commitments. We're still hitting the high school recruiting stuff, and it's about to cross. There's going to be a ton of commitments, a lot of big-time players between now and the end of June, and maybe even the first week or so of July. Every day, it should be 2 shows pretty much, even if they're just profiles. There's all kinds of things that we're going to have. I'm going to have some team profiles, who needs to hit what positions at the portal. So there's a lot of stuff going on right here. So make sure you bookmark it, you subscribe, you hit that notification bell. We will be here every single day. Hope to see you soon. Everybody have a good one. I'll talk to you later.